Hello, wonderful. This is Sarah, and I'm here with my newest and dearest friend, Marilyn Hawes. We met this morning after talking online for a while, and we almost wore matching t-shirts. We have a matching history, basically. We were both piano majors and piano players and taught music and then created campaigns for young people. I can't believe it. I'm so excited.
Well, I can't believe I was going to put on the same jumper as Sarah. And I thought, thank goodness I changed my mind.
Oh, it would have been cute. It would have been a cute story. But I'm so excited to have you. You are based in the UK and run freedomfromabuse.org. Mm-hmm. As well as the play, Can We Be Friends, which is going to be featured on the podcast soon. And you're an expert in helping people avoid toxic relationships of all kinds, but especially helping
of all kinds. So it started off, I used to be a deputy head and also a music teacher. And I had no idea that my best friend, he'd been my friend for 17 years. I first met him in church, and he became the head teacher of our church primary school, Church of England Primary School, where I worked and where I then ended up being deputy. And I met him in the church for 17 years and 10 years as my boss. And then in 2002 it was, so we're going back, 19 years, I had a little ding dong on my doorbell, and there were the police standing there asking to come in. They left 9 hours later when they told me that my best friend and boss was actually a paedophile. And they suspected that he had groomed and abused my boys, and that he had clearly groomed me, because that's the bit people don't get. Offline, yes. You would be groomed first. We're not talking about abduction here. We're talking about manipulation, the snake in the grass, the Little Red Riding Hood with the wolf in sheep's clothing and all of that, well hidden, but not so actually, because once you understand grooming, once you know those finite signs and the impact it has in your gut, you can see it like Rudolph's red nose.
I love it. I'm so excited to have you here and talk about this.
And if people don't believe me also, we all know somebody who's abusing a child. It is as common as, I don't know what your main cereal is. It's as common as maple syrup. It's as common as, I don't know what you have in America. As common as we have cornflakes over here. As common as
cornflakes. That's such a cute phrase. And Americans, they just try to see how much sugar they can put. The children, they get for Christmas, they get that sugary cereal, because I hate it in my house all the time, but I'll get them all the marshmallows, whatever.
Yeah. Christmas is all, I know that's what it's all about, isn't it? You can, So then they said to me about grooming, and you have been groomed, and I went, I'm sorry. I said, I was a deputy head teacher. What are you talking about? I've been on the child protection courses. I've been on safeguarding courses. It's all about the stranger danger, the funny man in the park. Well, no, not really. It's about this thing called grooming. I said, well, tell me about it then. And they went, well, how does it work? Well, he would be your very best friend, and you were vulnerable at the time because you were going through a divorce, and therefore your children were vulnerable. And grooming, I can always remember this lovely police officer who's sadly passed away now. She was lovely, saying to me, when you decorate a room, if you were to put the paint on too fast, everything bubbles up and falls off. The preparation is what the grooming is, the precursor to the abuse. And it takes a long time. They are very patient. They can wait a long time, and they have to make sure that everybody in their circle trusts them, adores them, believes everything about them, thinks they're wonderful. They are like the Pied Piper. You've heard the Pied Piper, have you, with all the children?
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, I don't know what.
No, I was like, I was gonna.
That's right, and that's what they're like. That is what they're like. And of course that's the name of the game, because they are extremely good with children. And I think I just could not get around my head. Why would my best friend? Why would this happen? Why would anyone do this? Are you born to do this? No. Do you wake up one day bored, fed up with having sex with somebody, so maybe I have a go at children? No. So where does it happen? So people thought I was bonkers, because you are going back 20 years, see, where no one really talked about this stuff. we wouldn't 20 years ago be having this conversation. And I just thought, well, I want to find out, because I am naturally inquisitive. And I thought there has to be a route. Everything, and I think I looked at it like music. You come to me at 25 years old, I'm not going to teach you how to play Mozart's clarinet concerto. If you are a beginner, where do you begin from? Well, let's look at what a clef is. Let's look at a bass clef. Let's look at stave and quavers and crotchet. You are starting from the beginning. So I thought, right, that's what I've got to do. So I started going into prisons and talking to child abusers, and people would say to me, "You're mad." I said, "No, I'm not mad, because I want to know what caused it." And it was very interesting how they all had adverse childhood experiences in their early years, very early years. Something had gone badly wrong. And of course, we're all unique. Our sensitivities are all different. So, you could spit in my face and I could tell you to go and do one, or I could be broken. So I can't run with, "Oh, you had less abuse than me." I'm sorry. No, you do not know the impact it has on each individual. And some that I hear is just literally, I do not kid you, vomit making. Some of the stories, I am never, even after all these years, I am never immune. I always keep it humanized. And I think that is the trouble with the internet and the online stuff. People have stopped humanizing the children that are being groomed online. They are children. They're not a number. They are children. And I was doing a long talk yesterday evening to a lot of parents, and I said, let's just start with this. Online, this is not child porn. It is not pornography. Pornography, in the adult pornography, we have consented to do it for whatever reason. Children cannot consent to abuse. They cannot consent to abuse, because the consent means understanding the consequences of your decision. Well, they can't make that decision because they don't know what it's about. But what these people are doing is watching a crime, paying a lot of money to watch a crime, which is called child abuse. So
it almost thinks like the gladiators, right? Like I think about the gladiators and people cheering, but that wasn't a movie. Like it was really someone dying. That was someone's father dying, their mother dying, their child dying.
Awful. And what they're doing online, they disguise themselves, they buy voice distorters, they coerce these children through the webcam, disguised as somebody maybe 30 years younger. They ask for images, they sound the same age, their webcam may not be working. They offer them on multiplayer games, offer them bribes or bits of money, whatever, and then they try and get them to meet up. And the youngsters just don't get it, because I think children today are living in the moment, and they are not engaging in critical thinking to think, hang on a minute, if I behave like that, what's going to happen? So all our courses are about behaviors, the behavior of the person who could be harmed, and the behavior of the person who is going to do the harm, and what are the originators of that. So in England, I always feel that every government, as long as I've done this, has failed children in our community, because what they want to do is always put money on the top going down. You have to invest in the bottom going up. Where are the roots? Where does it start? Interestingly, I found a lot of abusers told me that they were being harmful to animals before they were 7, brutal to insects and animals, not stepping on the cat's tail, cutting it off, that sort of thing. There's a massive sign. Arson, domestic abuse, animal abuse, all link with sexual abuse. And in fact, I learned very quickly through my progression of my course, starting with offline grooming, the enemy in your living room, right? And we were in that lane for several years. And then the internet came along, and I thought, oh, I think this is going to be a problem. So I started writing the courses. And now I've done this one on toxic relationships and friendships and children who abuse their parents. That has skyrocketed during lockdown.
It has. It's shocking. We're gonna have to do a whole nother podcast on that.
We've got loads of podcasts that need to be done.
I know. We've got all these. And I want to bring back into something.
I learned that all the abuses are basically like the Olympic rings.
Yeah.
If there's vulnerability, there is grooming in all of it, and they all interlink. So you can't really dissect them. So, you know, the grooming of the vulnerable is there with radicalization, it's there with toxic relationships, it's there with domestic abuse, it's there, you name it, the grooming, exploitation, grooming.
Well, in my book, there's a phrase and it says, there are toxic people and you know them. Yeah. If we can get past that, those two sentences, then you can start to keep yourself safe. But there's so many blinders. Oh, sure, there's toxic people, but they're not in my life.
Oh, exactly.
They're not in my neighborhood.
Well, let me tell you, I didn't know for 60 years that my sister had been raped. Oh. I didn't know. She didn't tell me till she was 65. And her behavior, you see, the behavior was there. That's the thing. Behavior is a global language. The abuse and harm, wherever it's coming from, impacts you and it manifests in behaviors. Yeah.
Writing that down. I love behavior is a global language. I'm writing it down.
And that's why we need to do these podcasts globally and tell people in every single street there is an abuser. Whether you like it or not, you need to wake up to that. Because about 3 or 4 years, they used to say, well, 1 in every 3 online groomers, 1 in 3 online groomers, they reckon 1 in 3 were offline ones, yeah? But now it's merged. Now, if you're doing one, you're doing the other. It's all part of the same mesh, right? But that plausibility that they're an okay person, that manipulation, that cunning way of, when it's offline grooming, of convincing and working their way in and making, they basically hijack your life. I was the groomed mother. I was the groomed deputy head. They hijack your life, and then every emotion, every thought, everything. So you find yourself isolating from your main friends and people that you've always trusted, because this person has become so integral into your life that
I call it the main event.
They become your default.
Yeah. Anybody's trying to make you the main event. Yeah.
Exactly right. And you just don't see it. So I would say to anybody, listen, because there were 2 or 3 friends that said to me, are you sure he's okay? Well, oh, goodness sake, what are you saying? But you cannot put a price on your gut instinct. When your gut goes, that's weird, right? So it's true, isn't it?
Yes.
Because your gut, your solar plexus, is your second brain. So you feel it in your gut, something's not right, quirky, and it's immediately sending a message going, whoa, ding dong, careful, stop, think. But I use this analogy when I'm training the children, and we have had disclosures, and those people are now in prison, right? And I'm very open with the youngsters. And I think you have to be, we've become too politically correct. Children are far more resilient than we think they are. They can take on board an awful lot, and they soon zone out if they don't want to. I mean, I had 4 children, all under 5. I had twins, and you can have a conversation on their terms, and then they get bored, then they might introduce it again. So little bite-sized pieces.
Yes, agreed.
But I
want to slow you down there. That was a really important point. Okay. It does not have to be this whole, like, you know, my children are 8 and 10 at this point. It doesn't have to be this whole, like, sit down for 2 hours, but something, you know, one thing I kind of sprinkle in with my kids, you can give me some advice on this, is I will always believe you if you tell me someone's hurting you.
Exactly. And I said yesterday, I had a lady, one of the parents who was online, she said to me, well, I've got this 16-year-old who spends all his time in his bedroom and, you know, this, that, and the other. I said, well, what do I do? He's just so difficult. I said, well, he is an angry young man. It's that stage, all the testosterone is pumping and all of that. But honestly, you need to, you need to never stop talking to them. I used to say to my children, you know what, I will always love you, but right now I don't like you so much.
I think my parents said that to me too.
I'm not here to be your friend.
Your friend.
Right now. You can like me and be my friend and take me down the pub when you're 25, but right now, sweetie, you're going to do as you're told, because I'm asking you to do it, because I'd rather not tell you, and I would appeal to you why I would like you to do it. And I would like you to meet me halfway. And then if that didn't happen, I'd say, well, you know what? Here's the thing. You're going to do it anyway, or not do it anyway. But I said, keep the conversation going. We are the adults here. We have walked this planet longer than they. We are here to get them through those rocky pathways. And the other thing I used to say to my children is, we can get through anything if you tell me the truth. It doesn't matter what it is. Tell me the truth and we can get you through it.
Well, tell me the truth. And something I had also heard, which I've not said to my kids in a long time, maybe I need to revisit it, is, if someone says they're going to hurt me, if you tell the truth, that's not true. Mommy's a grown up and she can protect herself and take care of herself. Because that's something else they groom kids with, right?
Exactly, they do. Because when my sister was raped, she was told, it was my uncle, she was told it would kill my mother. Well, my mother was
yes.
And I know that's happened a lot. Your mother will die. You will be put in a care home. The police will come and get you. It is all lies and threats, and it's impressionable on a young mind. And it is, I think, apart from losing your child, which has got to be the ultimate awful thing, I can't even imagine how that must feel like. Knowing your children have been sexually abused, it is the next worst. I've done divorce, so I was walking the park next to this, and that really, it absolutely pulled the rug from under me. It completely broke in a heartbeat, that ding dong on the door, and my life changed. Completely different trajectory. So when they told me that they thought my children had been sexually abused, I can remember coming out of the interview, and then the children came home from school, and my older son was working, saving up to go traveling, and they all went in and came out and and I literally threw up. The very thought of my best friend doing this, I just could not. And I had saved up. I was going to take my own life, and I thought, this is I had it all planned. And I thought, well, obviously, I've made some terrible decisions. I married the wrong man, and then got friendly with, I didn't know, this paedophile. And I'm obviously, because I was depressed, and that's the thing. When people say, and I do get upset about this, when people say, oh, it's so selfish to take your own life. No, they don't understand. You are in such a black hole, in such a dark space. You are mentally ill. You can't, if you were all wrapped up in plaster casting, people would go, oh, look at you, you poor thing in a wheelchair. Let me open the doors. Do you want any help? But that brokenness is going on inside, and no one sees it. And no one wants to know. And I always say to people, you know what? You need to grow a pair. Because quite frankly, you all know someone who's been abused. You all know someone, and you also know someone who's doing it, and you also know someone who it's happening to right now. Believe me, because the statistics back that up.
I agree 100%.
You need to grow a spine, because how do you think it feels for the person that's living with that secret behind their eyes? Be that person. So I have one slide at the start of my training. I say, always ask why. Why am I feeling this in my gut? Why is that person making me feel weird? What is it? So I say to the youngsters, think, is it because I ate too many cakes? Is it because I've lost my mobile phone? Is it because I've lost my school uniform? Is it because someone's creeping me out online? Is it because someone is touching me in my private areas? And I use a swimwear rule. I say, whatever is behind your swimwear or your swimming trunks is private. But let's not forget your mouth either. What's going on there, yeah? And I said, go and tell somebody. And I never say, go to see your mummy. I say, tell someone you trust, because I have over 20 years seen many mummies who are part of the problem.
Now, is it like a boyfriend or stepdad, uncle, brother, grandfather, and they just kind of cover over for the men?
Exactly. It's that for whatever reason, and we don't know why. But always tell. So we've had results from this. And then I said, so always ask why. Be the child. Stand in a child's shoes and step back from being the age you are and think. I've come in late to school and I'm being bollocked for being late. Has anyone asked why? Maybe you were hovering outside the school gates to avoid the bully. Maybe you've been up all night being raped by your father. But you're just shouting at them. No one stops to be the child and just stop back and think, wake up at the back of the class. Come along, what are you doing? What are you daydreaming about? Maybe they're dissociating. Maybe they're terrified of going home because tonight their cousin's come home and it's going to start all over again.
Well, and I think the point in getting behind the eyes of the child and linking it to what you're talking about and keeping our kids safe is trying to take away the fear of telling the truth, or the fear of being able to say something, whether it's no one's going to believe me, no one's going to, it's really my fault. No one's going to protect me. They're going to kill my mother. They're going to take me away and put me in an orphanage. Is that what you're saying, is trying to get children to not only recognize, but also kind of work around it to say, if it's happening, create a safe space to tell.
Exactly. The thing is, you see, they get fed this toxic shame. It's your fault.
Right.
You shouldn't be so pretty. You sat on my lap. You had all the treats. You liked being taken out on a nice surprise visit. You see, it's your fault. It's all your fault. I mean, I had a child abuser literally in a prison say to me, he said, it's a great big bloke. And I so wanted to punch him in the face. And I thought, I'm not going to, because they want to humiliate you and they want to shock you. And I thought, no, you're not doing that. And I can play that face, because when you've been in teaching, you have to all the time, don't you? Land. And he said, you don't know what it's like to have had sex with a 3-year-old. So I thought, I'm not going to do what you've just done. I just said,
wow,
how interesting. Do you want to talk about it?
Yeah.
And he went, yes, I do. So I said, go on then. And he said, well, there was I sat babysitting, see, and there she comes down, all with her lovely blonde hair, just been bathed and washed, comes downstairs with no knickers on and a nightie, and sat on my lap. I mean, she wanted it. They are so distorted. They are so in their brain. You see, what happens, the trauma, and I am not making excuses for them, because my 3 sons were sexually abused, but they are also victims of their upbringing. And what happens, I'm going to show you, if I've got it here, a minute. Oh, where have I got it? Ooh, excuse me 1 minute. I just want to show you something.
No, go for it.
This is you can tell I was a teacher and I had 4 young kids, because I still love Play-Doh.
Oh.
So I say, right, okay, this is what I'd learned.
Hold on, I'm gonna see what I have. I'm pretty sure I have some Play-Doh in here too. I had this like goo. Oh, I don't know where it is. Yeah, in this drawer I had this little purple, so when I was sitting here watching training videos, I would have something to play with in my hands, and that would have been really funny if I could have pulled that out.
We weren't separated at birth, were we?
Separated at birth, yes.
So anyway, say this is a baby's brain, right? You cannot prove that people were born like this. If you did that, you'd have to have an MRI scan on every baby born. So trauma causes this awful chemical called cortisol, very dangerous, and it spikes. The trauma spikes, right? Now, on the developing brain, that's really dangerous, because the brain is still developing until you're 25. So trauma, I don't know. It could be that my mum and dad have been killed on a motorway. That's trauma. Now I've had to go into care. That's trauma on trauma, complex trauma. And then I go into care and I meet some dodgy person there, more trauma. So out comes this cortisol. And it's breaking neural pathways. It's all about neuroscience. It breaks the neural pathways. It eats away at the healthy brain cells. Now you've got this. It changes the landscape of the brain. And in that thing there, it damages the frontal lobal system. And if that's not fixed, because that will come out as behavior, then if that's not fixed, that person's going to have problems. So this is when I said to these people, your abusers, I said, tell me what you were like at school. And they all say they were either a little what's it, or they were incredibly regressed. Yeah. And you see, that's what teachers always, they tend to miss it. They don't see overt shyness, not just shy, overt shyness. And I said, okay, so
sheltered in place almost, kind of.
And when you got to puberty, You know what, I mean, I've got 2 gay stepchildren, so they knew they were gay when they were about 10. I knew I was heterosexual at about 10. Well, you might be transgender, whatever. When did you know you were going to be what you became? Oh, about 10, 11 years old. So the fiddling and the over-sexualized behavior was already there when they were 10 or 11. Now the number of times I've heard teachers and head teachers say to me, it's child's play. Excuse me, I had 4 children. They did not behave like that. They played doctors and nurses, but not like that.
And you're talking about injuring animals, hurting.
And also, I'm dealing at the moment with a 6-year-old boy whose next door neighbor goes to the same school. He's 6. And this boy continually puts his digits up this little boy's bottom, right? And social services here have said that's child's play. It's not on our threshold of concern. And I said, I'm sorry, that's not. And this little boy has been banned from children's parties because he won't leave it alone. He takes boys' and girls' pants down and does it there. He's only 6 years old. You're telling me that boy's not going to be a problem? And the other thing that is very interesting, especially if ladies are listening to this, what comes out of our mouth can be so damaging. And the number of these men, when I said to them, can you tell me about your actual childhood, where the problems were? Can you tell me about, because they're very intelligent. A lot of them are very attractive, articulate, and they groom each other inside as well. Don't think it stops because they're behind bars. The grooming continues. But I say, what about your relationship with your mother? The number of abusers that had a bad relationship with their mother. So I would say to mothers, for goodness sake, if you've got boys, validate them. As young men that they will be, the masculinity, the fact that they've been slammed down, shut up, don't do, you've only got to walk, well, I don't know what it's like in America, but you've only got to walk down the street in England, shut up, and you think, what are you doing to your child? And always putting the boy down. And a lot of these abusers have problems with their mothers, which was very interesting.
I believe
it's dangerous.
And the fathers aren't as dangerous, right?
Cortisol is dangerous.
Oh, the cortisol is dangerous. What I have seen, especially in conservative culture, in America, the conservative culture, it's like, boys need their dads, that sense of dads. And of course, people need healthy parents. The best scenario is 2 healthy parents. But I almost think the research is very lagging behind on what happens with a dysfunctional mother, which I have seen to be much worse.
It is worse. It is worse. And I urge mums to, this is why I am a passionate fondness of adverse childhood experiences. If we could get into antenatal classes before these babies are born and think about, and it should be in the schools, think about how you talk. The words that come out of our mouths are so important. You could, should, would. Could you do it? Should you do it? Would you do it? They mean 3 different things. And the mothers, I know I'm a dinosaur, I know that, but I worry about babies that are put in their buggies, front facing into the world. They've only got themselves born maybe 3 or 4 months ago. Do you not think they're frightened? Why can't you turn it around and smile and create that attachment?
My son wouldn't even go in there. I carried him around the house when I was loading the dishwasher. And we were so close now. We are so close.
Exactly the same. And I was picking up my twins when they were 3 years old. I can't even pick up my 3-month-old grandbaby now.
Yeah, twins. Yeah, twins. That's crazy. But I do think that's important to note, because I think when they say something like, oh, the abandoned dads, troubled dads, they are operating under the assumption, these people are talking about this, that there's a wonderful mother in place. And it's so sad there's no dad. But what you have seen and what I have seen, I do want to point out, because no one's really saying this is.
I know. And I think that's the other thing they're not saying as well, is that fathers can get a form of postnatal depression. They've married this woman and overnight, as we do, that woman's changed. You've just pushed a human being out into the world.
Yes.
Or had it pulled out, whatever they do in America, cesarean and all that, whatever way, you are now looking after, you've been growing a human being. That's huge. And then suddenly the relationship with the husband's different. And again, some men are hugely resilient. My boys have not had any problem with it. But I know there are some men that do. They're almost quite jealous of the attention. The men need to be also supported. And I think also there is this asexual connection, the mother with the boy, the father with the daughter, where the father it sort of encourages the femininity in the little girl and, is very loving and gentle and all of that. And then the mother is like, it's wrong to say boyfriends and girlfriends, but you know what I mean? Aware of
modeling healthy relationships.
Aware of their gender.
Yeah, and hopefully creating situations that model healthy relationships growing up.
And you know what, Sarah? I don't care. I've always said this. I don't care if you're green with blue spots, transgender, whatever. I couldn't give a monkey's as long as you're not fiddling with kids.
That's fair. That's fair. Or abusing adults, right? Abusive behavior in any way.
And it's children that are on the spectrum, autism, Asperger's, all of that. They already, bless their hearts, have problems with relationships. So they are very easy to groom and abuse because they have a problem understanding it all. And children that have any form of disability, they are 3 times more likely to be groomed and abused by many people, which is awful. And I often think, if you were blind, say you're a 3-year-old and you can't see, how do you know what's going on? Or do your other senses become more alert? Because you cannot put a price on your instinct. And I always stress this. And I do a lot of work with the police. And there was this one police officer, well, chief constable, and he said to me once, he said, "You're dead right, love." He came from up north, Lancashire and Yorkshire. He said, "You're dead right, love. If it don't feel right, it ain't bloody right." Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Your instinct is your alarm bell. And the analogy I use with the children and with the staff is, right, okay, so a bird is in the garden, it sees a cat coming along. Now, a cat's a predator. The bird hasn't gone to university to learn that. What does the bird do? So the bird flies away. Mm-hmm. And the bird sits on a branch and watches. Then what does the bird do? It goes, it warns its mates. We don't do that.
We don't do that. And then we tell people who are warning to shut their mouths.
Exactly right.
Move on. Get over it.
We don't do it. And that's why our children get harmed. Because along comes Mr. Creep or Charm and Smarm or Mrs. Creep, because they come in pink and blue, and we go, no, can't be. No, can't be. Oh, boo. And that's why. That's
and when you are
in nature.
Yeah, and when you warn, and I want everybody listening, those of you who has, a woman or somebody else who said that she's been abused or some situation has happened, and you have pushed that off and ignored her and not wanted to get involved and not wanted to whatever, you are putting your children in danger. Exactly. You are not changing society. If you think your children and you are going to not be involved in this, you are a part of the problem. And when you are ignoring what is happening, you are promoting.
What I say, if you ignore it, then you're third party to the problem.
Absolutely.
You are actually compliant with the problem, because the problem is going to continue even with your mouth shut. So, where is your human accountability? We are all on this planet for a reason. And it's not just about having a lot of money and posh cars and nice holidays and having a yacht. If you've got, I have a very altruistic spiritual side to me. And I believe, and I truly do believe this, I do believe in a spiritual warfare. I believe there is evil and I think there's good. And it's a constant battle. And when you are working in the toxic environment that I'm working in, you do come under attack. And, we have, honestly, I have been stalked. I have had my car acid rained. I've had death threats. I don't give a stuff, because I try shutting me up, because I am going to go down fighting, because we have got to do something to change society, and every child matters. And I just feel, I know there's a handful of children, but the police say to me, there's many, many more that you will have helped. But I know there's about 5, certainly, whose abusers are now in prison. And I just think, wow, maybe my oxygen was worth it, because there's 5 lives. And if in your lifetime you only save 1, then your time on this planet.
And you saved the kids they would have abused if they weren't in prison.
Sorry, if
the ones because they're in prison, they're not abusing any more children. So it's not just about those 5. It's so great. Marilyn, come back on the podcast. Yes, check her out. Yes, for sure.
There's so many more topics. I must have about 10 different courses now. I've done one on trafficking as well. I wrote one the other day on that. And again, all about the grooming of the vulnerable. If you are vulnerable, and the thing I'd like to say to everybody is, you might be listening to this saying, my life is fine, I'm in a good space. It might change tomorrow. Mm-hmm. You don't know what tomorrow might bring.
And if you are in a good space, that is you're supposed to be giving back.
And you're supposed to be giving back. Exactly right.
It's not just about Netflix.
Honestly, Sarah, we get no funding. And I think I went on a very big show in England called Loose Women, right? And there were 23,000 hits on that website from the interview I did. 23,000 hits on my website. Not one person gave $1. Or £1, because it's the same. Right. It would have been £23,000. Oh my word. I know people where if they did that in one donation, wouldn't even feel it. But hey, let's get back on that yacht and buy the best champagne and ignore the plight of other people.
Marilyn, I love you. Thank you for coming. I'm so excited. Everybody, see her soon. Everybody check her out. Freedom Abuse.
Yeah, Freedom Abuse.
Freedom-abuse.org. Yes, awesome. Marilyn, thank you for helping us on our journey to becoming toxic person proof.
Thank you so much. Take care. Love you. Bye-bye.